this to another topic. I got this from one of the papers, and it was, we all know about Dwight Gooden, former great pitcher for the New York Mets. This was a letter that his girlfriend wrote to him, and she said to Dwight, "You look like an addict. You talk like an addict. You fidget like an addict. You manipulate like an addict. You drive like an addict. You blow money like an addict. You go through women like an addict. You miss appointments like an addict. You eat like an addict. You parent your kids like an addict." Stephen, thoughts on what you just heard?
I mean, that's real powerful stuff, but that even goes back to what I was saying before, that the drugs and the alcohol is just a symptom and a solution. It's all of this stuff. It's everything. It's, you know, you're living your entire life in a certain fashion that it is parallel to drinking and drugging. You know, I can't stay sober and live dirty. You know what I mean? Like, sober goes so far beyond than just the absence of drugs and alcohol. You know, I live a sober way of life. I can't lie. I can't manipulate. I can't drive like that, although I do most of the time. I can't blow money like that. I can't go through women like that. I can't miss appointments. I have to act like a functioning member of society.
But aren't these all typical of an addict? I mean,
yeah.
Doesn't this describe basically what an addict, all these things that a person gets involved in who's in the throes, all these things are so typical.
Yeah, it's a I don't want to say it's a stereotype, but it's literally a typecast of an addict. That's literally because your life is completely unmanageable in every single way, in every aspect.
Absolutely.
And this is going to lead me to the next topic, taking Dwight Gooden. Again, there's millions of Dwight Goodens out there. Andrew, talk about the fact, two things that I think are so important: denial and rock bottom. So many people, no matter how bad their problem is, they're in constant denial. And for so many people, from what I've heard from so many people, from last meeting and reading and so many topics, they don't seek help until they reach the absolute rock bottom. Let's touch on those.
Okay, well, denial is a very powerful defense mechanism. It's something that protects you from facing reality. And I think, you know, when Bob was talking about the community speaking engagements, whether it's in a school or elsewhere, and people say, you know, can you not make it too harsh, keep it a little bit soft? It gives you a little bit of a flavor of how the culture of addiction, which if you think of the family to begin with, and then you think of the local community and beyond that, how that can spread to a point where the rules in a family where there's addiction, they're unspoken rules, but the rules are don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. And that spreads. So being bold and speaking out, as you know, the Kiwanis does, as Stephen does in the many places that he talks, helps to chip away at that denial. But what's important to know about denial and about, you know, hitting rock bottom, which I'll talk a little bit more about, is that we have to understand addiction as a family disease, not just a disease of an individual. Because the family lives with all of those things that you just talked about that Dwight Gooden's girlfriend wrote a letter about. And so the family is organized, when you think about denial, about secrecy. Because they're living with unpredictability. They're living with hypervigilance. What's going to happen next? What's going to be stolen? When is the car going to be crashed? What time is he or she going to come home? When am I going to get the next call from the police? And you live with that unpredictability. And you've heard the term enabler. You know, the term enabler, it doesn't mean that it's the family member's fault that the addiction is continuing, but it means that nobody really wants to speak out about it and expose it because it's so shameful that it needs to remain a secret. And part of that shame, again, has to do with stigma, which is a societal thing. Looking at addiction, looking at mental illness differently as a brain disease than in diseases of other parts of the body. And so what rock bottom is all about is if you don't get help earlier on, if people don't bring attention to your needing to stop and to get the help to stop, and for you to at least open your eyes and maybe take that first step, then it's a question of loss. It's a question of you lose your job, you lose your sanity, you lose your friends, you lose your family, you lose your money, you lose your life. And so it's at what point in that spiral of loss do you finally feel like I have to do something about this now? And for Stephen, as he talked about it, it was that one little glimmer of light that said, I'm not going to live this way anymore, and I have to do something about this. And I don't know if you would refer to that as your bottom, but it was certainly something that opened your eyes and that moved you in another direction. So it's a very, very complicated, difficult problem for families and for communities. But what everybody is doing that's spoken here to bring light to it is to move against that denial, against that secrecy, to break away that stigma and that shame. And even if it gives, you know, one person, one family, the opportunity from hearing this to take that step in another direction, then it's all worthwhile.
Absolutely. And Stephen, I want you to contribute as well on, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of denial and people finally reaching out for help when they hit rock bottom.
I mean, denial is, it's so far past just my denial. You know what I mean? It's the denial of everybody around me. And because addicts are master manipulators, it's a lot easier for my loved ones to stay in denial because they want to believe me so bad. You know, that's all they want. They want to really believe deep down that I mean it this time. And, you know, my personal denial is, you know, oh, I'm just a kid, I'll grow out of the phase, you know, oh, I can stop whenever I want, I just don't want to right now, or, you know, that cop pulled me over because he, you know, he's just whatever, he's going through something. And it had nothing to do with me. Yeah, it had nothing to do with me. And it never had anything to do with me. It was the town I live in, it's the people I grew up with, it's not me. It's definitely not my drinking, you know. Anything I can do to lie and manipulate to protect my drinking and drugging, I was going to do because I wanted to continue drinking and drugging. And talking about rock bottom, I mean, you said before, ultimate rock bottom. Do you know what that is? It's death. The ultimate rock bottom is dying. That's it. There's no deeper bottom than that. And the sad part is, it takes a lot of people to get to that point, you know. But I've hit a lot of physical bottoms. Gotten arrested. I've been to getting high on my way to court, knowing I'm going to get drug tested, you know, because I was so powerless, right? I've lost friends. I've had family stop talking to me. I lost jobs. I lost anything that came into my life, you know, and it wasn't until I hit an emotional rock bottom that I was able to make some type of change, that I wanted to make some type of change, you know. I had an excuse for everything why my life wasn't unmanageable. When I hit that emotional rock bottom and I just didn't want to live anymore, you know, it's like I can't live this way, and I didn't know there was a way out, so I thought the only way out was to die, and I started to accept that. I can't justify to myself why that's not unmanageable, you know. And when I got to that point and I looked in the mirror for the first time in a long time, I said, who did you become? Like, how did you get here? You had all these goals, aspirations, dreams, things you were going to accomplish, things you were going to do, and you're sitting here with a needle in your arm, right? How did I get here? I wasn't supposed to be like this. And when I got to that point is when I hit that necessary, vital, emotional rock bottom that I was able to make some type of change.
So, Bob, what's your thoughts on, because I'm sure you've seen it, and you brought up some great points about parents being in denial. Not my town, my kid's not so bad. So you can expand on denial and rock bottom as well.
Well, I'll tell you, this is really terrific, because when you talk about mental illness gets overlooked. It's like a taboo thing. Nobody wants to talk about it. I've been touched by overdose and death. So I understand from my nephew, I understand it. I don't understand it. I never quite understand, in all honesty, I never quite understand what could be so bad to have that happen. We have one of our members who courageously, his son killed himself a year ago. And he put up a run, raised a very large amount of money for us. He brought his story to us. He had to go out there and collect his son out in Colorado and bring him home because he killed himself. And he managed to pull it together and use his story to help others. But he was in denial back then, and he didn't understand what was going through. Was denial or not understanding? He didn't know the mental illness side of it. And everybody talks about prescription drugs or heroin, but they don't always talk about the mental illness side. And we need to bring light to that, because that is a huge element. Parental denial is a huge element. They go, that's not my, that's not this, but you know what, it really is. So the more exposure, and through venues like this and things that you're all doing, is going to be the linchpin to make sure that other people see it and they identify, well, that could be me. You said there was a woman here who lost her son that may be able to speak at some point. Well, if you ever want to talk to a guy, there's a gentleman at our club that lost his son for all the wrong reasons. And while he's crushed, he is driven to try and help others now so that doesn't happen to him. So thank God you're still here. Thank God, whatever the reason is that you're still on this side of the dirt, hallelujah. But unfortunately, not everybody's that lucky, right? So, and it's great that you're spending your time and preaching that message and getting it out to everybody, because other kids will be out there trying to say, what does he know? But you know what? Deep down inside, they understand, and they can identify. They can't identify with all those old guys, right? But for you, they can. So if we can somehow continue this topic, continue this dialogue with everybody that we can, whether it's visiting, shows like this, books, papers, speaking on the corner, whatever we have to do, get people to really identify and talk about the addiction, the denial, mental illness, we'll all be better off. So.
Absolutely.